This week I want us to look into God's Word and see what it says about God's timing, which we clearly don't understand. Good morning, this is Pastor Ernie Lewis of the Blue Point Church in Sisney, Illinois, with your thoughts from God's Word for Monday. You know, Peter writes in his first New Testament epistle that many people are waiting for Christ's return, or even wishing for the judgment and the perdition of ungodly men. If this was the case some 2,000 years ago, then probably more people are impatient to see Christ come even today and look for the judgment of this evil world. Or perhaps they're not looking for it at all, because so many Christians have become hardened to the sins of this world and they're not looking for Christ's return. But Peter reminds them through their impatience. He says in 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8, "But beloved, do not forget this one thing, that with the Lord, one day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day." We often forget that God is an eternal being. He doesn't live with the same timetable which most of us live our lives by daily. Even those Jewish people in the New Testament era were impatient for the coming of the promised Messiah. We often get so engrossed and occupied with things to come that it overwhelms us. Perhaps it's an important date, like the due date of a new baby that's coming, or maybe the date of a calendar on the calendar where a wedding has been set for the future. But Peter reminds us that not only does God not think like we do, he also has a whole different timetable for his plans and his blueprints for the future. When we sometimes wish that God would hurry up and bring something to pass, we're reminded that we must trust his timing, realize that he has the situation under control. In the Old Testament book of Genesis, God had offered or promised an offspring to Abraham and Sarah. As a matter of fact, he had promised a multitude of offspring, like the sand on the seashore or numbered like the stars in the heaven. But the problem was Abraham and Sarah were getting along in years. They had waited for this a long time. They believed in God's promise, but it was all a matter of timing that made them doubt. They finally devised their own plans where they would bring forth a seed to their family. Sarah sent Abraham in to her handmaid Hagar so that he could have a child with her. Well, certainly Hagar had a child, but that was not God's will. And Ishmael caused problems not only in the family, he has caused problems for Israelites ever since then. And then, to tell you the truth, Abraham felt like he would make his top servant like a son, and God would bless that. He even chose out Eliezer to be like the son well, God didn't bless that plan either. Abraham had now reached 100 years of age when Isaac, that son of promise, was finally born. Sarah was age 90, which even in those days was well past the childbearing years. But God had a plan for his chosen people that he would bring forth from Abraham, from the family of Isaac. And those strange ages or those years of anguish did not thwart the plan of God and his timing. We should learn from God's word and his work throughout the Bible that we have to trust in his timing. No matter what it looks like to us, or no matter what we're thinking or our anxieties, we trust that God, in his perfect timing, will bring about his will.